All right, let's talk about one of the most stressful questions in all of product development. So, did we actually test with enough users? Today, we are going to walk through how to build a bulletproof case to answer that question with total confidence. Let's dive in.
You know the scene, right? You've spent weeks, maybe months on user testing. You're in the big meeting, you're presenting your findings, everything's going great. And then someone asks that one question. And suddenly, the air kind of gets sucked out of the room. It feels like a direct hit on your work, and it can bring everything to a grinding halt.
But here's the thing. What if I told you that question isn't a threat? What if it's actually an opportunity? Because by preparing a structured, logical case, you can turn that moment of doubt into a masterclass on your team's confidence and expertise. And today, that's exactly what we're going to build, step by step.
Okay, first things first. Before we get into anything else, we have to be absolutely crystal clear about who we talk to. This isn't just about a number. It's about the real people behind your data. This is the foundation of your entire argument.
So you start by just laying all your cards on the table. How many people did you test? What kind of people are they? Where in the world are they? How did you even find them? And, let's be honest, what did you give them for their time? Every single one of these points adds another layer of context. Being totally transparent right here is step one to earning that trust.
And this is why that user segment is so incredibly important. I mean, think about it. The feedback you get from 5 early adopters is going to be wildly different than what you'd get from 5 mainstream users. Early adopters, they're excited, they're forgiving of a few bugs, they're all about the big vision. Mainstream users? Nope. They want a polished experience that works perfectly right now. Knowing who you talk to is crucial for framing what they told you.
All right, so we've nailed down the who. Now we've got to tackle the really tough question, the how many. This is where we actually have to justify our sample size. Now, you've probably heard this kind of scary-sounding term, statistical relevance, thrown around. It sounds like something you need a PhD for, right? But all it really means is, how sure are we that what these few people did is what all our users would do? You don't have to be a statistician, but you do need to be able to talk about the idea.
And here is the most important part. Your reasoning for the number is so much more important than the number itself. What was your goal? If you were just hunting for obvious usability problems, well, you'll see the same issues pop up with just 5 people. But if you were trying to see if people would actually pay for something, yeah, you're going to need a much bigger sample. Your why is always your strongest defense.
You want to know a pro move? Get out ahead of the criticism by pointing out your own limitations. Seriously, no sample is perfect. Maybe you only recruited people from your company's mailing list. That's a bias right there. By saying that up front, you look smart, you look honest, and you build a ton of credibility. It shows you've thought about this from all angles.
So we know who we talked to and why we chose that number. But, quantity is only half the picture. We need to look at the quality of their participation. I mean, did they just show up and click through, or were they really engaged? Let's break down what they actually did.
A simple chart like this tells a huge story in just a second. A high completion rate? Awesome, that's a good sign. But a high drop-off rate, well, that's just as valuable. That's like a giant flashing arrow pointing directly at your biggest problem areas. Both outcomes are critical pieces of evidence. And it goes beyond just completion. You've got to talk about the quality of that engagement. Were they just rushing through to get it over with, or were they exploring, clicking around, and giving you really rich, detailed feedback? Honestly, one highly engaged user can be worth more than 3 people who are just phoning it in.
Okay, and this brings us to the whole point of the exercise, right? The insights. What did we actually learn? This is the big payoff for all that work. This is the evidence that's going to move your project forward.
Those aha moments don't just appear out of thin air. There's a process. You start with just a mountain of raw data and observations. Then, you start to spot the patterns, the things you see people doing over and over again. And from those patterns, you pull out your key learnings. Showing that you have a clear process proves your conclusions aren't just wild guesses.
And listen, nothing makes a point better than a direct quote. It takes a boring data point like 70% of users struggled with search and makes it human. It makes it real. It's a customer's voice in their own words, telling you exactly what felt wrong. You can't argue with that.
Now, let's circle back to that sample size question again. You have to be clear about what kind of insights you have. Are they directional, like a compass pointing you where to go next? Or are they definitive, like a final destination? For most smaller tests, your insights are directional.
If 3 out of 5 people get confused by the same icon, that's a powerful signal to change it. It gives you the confidence to take the next step.
So, we've looked at the subjects, we've justified the numbers, we've analyzed the engagement, and we've pulled out the insights. We have gathered all of our evidence. Now it's time to deliver the final verdict.
We are now ready to answer that big, scary question from the beginning, head on. Was it enough? And the answer isn't a simple yes or no. The real answer depends on one thing. Do we have enough information to feel confident about our core assumptions?
And using a framework like this one makes the decision totally clear and data-driven. Let's walk through it. If the evidence proved your big ideas were right, then awesome. Yes, the test was sufficient, you can move forward. But if your assumptions got blown up or the results were just messy and unclear, then the answer is no, it wasn't sufficient, and your next step is to plan another round of testing. It's a simple, defensible way to make the call.
So as we wrap this up, think about it. With this framework, you can walk into any meeting ready for that question, and you won't be on the defense. You'll have a confident, evidence-based case ready to go. So the only question I have for you is, how strong is the case for your last test?